After you've grown fully accustomed to your foreign way of life, how do you readjust back to your home country? I recently made a video about 18 things about traveling. So I decided to make a reverse culture shock video because now I'm back in sunny South Florida. It's about to rain now, but it's still sunny. Your face. I'm sure you've heard of homesickness before, but what happens when you finally return home? Are you ever the same? I would argue from a long stay away from home, you are not the same when you return, and you see things quite differently. Your sense of awareness of all things is intensely heightened. So you're probably wondering, what the hell is reverse culture shock? All right, here's a quick example. So a fish is caught, escapes, and learns how to breathe outside of water. It then eventually develops lizard-like legs to adapt to its new habitat. But then the fish is caught and sent back into the water. Now the fish has to learn how to use its newly acquired legs in its old environment. That's reverse culture shock. Fish is like, oh damn, what am I gonna do with these legs? Now I gotta swim like this. People respond differently to reverse culture shock. For others, it's a really extreme case, and for some, it's not that extreme. But for me, there's been some extreme instances, and other times where I've managed to adapt quite quickly. My family always asks me about the adjustment phase in Asia. How is the food, the people? But they never or rarely ask me how I managed to readjust myself coming back to America. That question never occurs unless you've traveled before. Once you return, the smallest differences are magnified. Whoa, is that a black and white baby sitting next to each other? Walmart at 3 a.m. is ratchet. What am I doing at Walmart at 3 a.m.? When you move through social environments, you feel a high sense of cultural disorientation. That's the perfect word to use when you return back home. Disorientation. Stepping outside of your familiar matrix, your bubble, is hard to grasp, especially when you have to go back into that matrix, into that bubble you were once in. You actually go through several phases when you travel. You actually extract aspects of your honeymoon phase and transfer it to the adjustment phase. For me, since South Korea is a homogeneous country, I basically extracted my honeymoon phase and added it to my adjustment phase, because the mastery phase, you will never be Korean because you physically aren't Korean, and they really focus on the whole blood game in Asia. So since you will never be accepted as a native, you will constantly be caught and let loose. Caught and let loose. You will always be a fish. Reverse culture shock in the cognitive sense is essentially information ultra overload. You tend to combine the fascination of new and old things from your old and new environment. The association of similarities and differences is heightened. Body language, the nostalgic conversations with friends and families. You've, for the most part, reshaped your deeply held beliefs and values. You've also managed to learn and unlearn habits. You've maintained your newly acquired traveling wisdom. Everything is heightened. And everything is taken into consideration, even your national identity. The hyphen in my national identity is less apparent when I returned. I quickly realized just how much I have in common with Americans from all racial backgrounds, with fellow white Americans and Hispanic Americans. We have a lot in common. The similarities outweigh the differences. Here are 15 reverse culture shock experiences, some very minor. But for me and for a lot of people that have traveled to different countries and came back to their home country, these things are extreme, and it messes with your head. So this is in no particular order. I'm just going to go ahead and list away. So number 1, jet lagged. Korea is a full day ahead, and I'm traveling back in time. So it feels like I'm time warped. I'm in a dream state of mind. I keep falling asleep in odd hours, like right now. Ordering food in English, in straight English, without inserting Konglish. I didn't have to go, 저기요, 이거 하나 주세요. I went to Chipotle and did damage. Went in there, it's like, can I get that right there? You understand what I'm saying, right? Yeah. Let me get that right there. Thank you, sir. Tipping. In a lot of cultures like Korea, you don't tip at all. You don't tip taxi drivers. You don't tip the waitresses or waiters. You just order your food. And coming back to America is a big wake-up call. Because when I ordered, I'm like, what's this? What is this extra stuff? 15, 12%? Get out of here, son. So, of course, you have to get in the habit of tipping again because you forget. The bowing and nodding confusion. My friends come up to me, Wilk, what's good, man? It's been a long time. What's up? And, they try to give me the brother handshake, and I'm like, hey, what's good, man? Hi. Fashion and body language. I went to the mall and there was a group of black guys with dreadlocks, at least 7 of them, and they were sitting down enjoying their lunch, and I'm just across just looking at them. It looked a bit suspect because I was just so shocked to see so many guys with dreadlocks. I just didn't see that in Korea. These are small things that it was so heightened, and I'm just sitting there looking at them like the wow factor, as if I was Korean and wasn't black or dreadlocks. And I think their gay alert turned on. I was like, is this dude? No, I don't think he's gay. Is he gay? And I was like, and in my mind, I'm like, no, I'm not gay. I just enjoy the presence. I enjoy the presence. Driving. I didn't drive for a full year in South Korea. A full year. I just took the subway and the occasional bus. When I got on the highway, in my sister's Hello Kitty clustered car, I was happy. I'm on a highway. Oh, hey, how you doing? And no, I don't drive like this. I was whipping it. Hello Kitty and all. Just if you've been to Korea, police officers, in comparison to American police officers, opposites. And I don't want to offend Koreans at all, but some of the cops do look like Boy Scouts in comparison to police officers in the States who are simply the manifestation of Rambo. Yeah, tasers, check. Gun, check. Bazooka, check. Speaking of police officers and driving, I wasn't speeding. I'm actually a really good driver in terms of safety. I put my seatbelt on and everything. But a cop pulled over another vehicle, and I heard whoop whoop. Everyone knows that sound. Whoop whoop. Right, Mom? You know that sound. Whoop whoop. And then you put your seatbelt on, you're like, it was supposed to be on in the first time. Where are you going? Palmete manger. Yeah. You know that sound. Whoop whoop. Oh, man, no. Cultural intensity and mannerisms. I know Americans enough, white and black Americans, enough to gauge their character. Like my character meter is always on alert. Whereas in Korea, although I've been there for quite a long time now, it's still fairly difficult to really gauge the intentions of certain Koreans because you are a foreigner, and vice versa. They can't really gauge the nuances that you send out. Race consciousness. When I dropped my nephew off to his daycare and I saw all of these multicultural families, I was taken back a little bit because I was so used to seeing Korean children and Korean families leaving their daycares and attending school. And these are things that you've grown accustomed to seeing, even though you aren't Korean and don't really want to be Korean, but you enjoy the customs and you just enjoy people once you get used to them, and you know the good and the bad about their culture now. But when I walked into that daycare and I saw all of these Hispanic, black, and even Asian Americans, and it took me back a little bit, and it put everything into perspective in terms of the multicultural culture that I've been reared into. And when you move outside of that bubble, things can get drastically different. Less attention on me. In Korea, I obviously stand out a lot, but here, people don't look at you like you're some alien. Albeit, my dreadlocks still garners attention, and depending on your views about dreadlocks, can garner a different type of reaction towards me. Unless I start speaking or we then begin to communicate, and then you can gauge my character, like I said before. But for the most part, I'm not sitting by someone who's constantly staring at me or is pretty much about to touch me just to touch my skin. I appreciate that attention, and I appreciate the will to learn about different people, as a lot of the local Koreans are attempting to do. But for the most part, for the foreigner who probably isn't having the best day, sometimes it can get a bit redundant, and you feel like a zoo, a pet from a zoo. Small things, it's the small things. A bathtub, yes. The shower is connected to the sink, and I'm used to it now. I actually never found it weird to begin with, but it was just weird to get used to. But when I walked into my house and I was like, whoa, a bathtub? Jump in there face first. Hey. A sense of space. It seems like in Asia, people are very much close to each other, probably because geographically it's it's a small area, and I think I need to research more on the sense of space. But it seems like, at least in Florida, a lot of people are, even in the lines, there's a huge degree of space between people. Whereas in Korea, people are very much close to you, and they may be afraid of you because you're a foreigner, but it doesn't stop them from being next to you, and it's an awkward paradox, really. Overhearing conversations and the sense of normality. Hearing English everywhere really shocks me, because you're just not used to it unless you're around your foreign friends in Korea. And I catch myself in Starbucks the other day listening, overhearing people's conversations, and not really avoiding it, just kind of like being nosy as hell, like, wow, I understand everything they're saying. Even though I studied a little Korean, I can't understand everything. The nuances of news, you feel more connected once you hear a major news. For example, the Lance Armstrong confession and Martin Luther King's birthday. You feel that in the air. Whereas in Korea, I would read an article or watch a video, and I will move on to the next thing. I'll go on economist.com or TED.com and NPR. I would listen to things, but I'll go on in my daily Korean life, move on. If I'm meeting someone at Busan Station or something, or Haeundae Beach, I'd move on. But in the States, you're meeting friends and you're actually engaging in dialogue about the major news that just happened. The sense of connection once you hear major news, especially sports, like the Super Bowl is coming up soon, and you can feel that intensity in the air. Miami Heat just won a basketball game recently. So LeBron James just scored 20,000 points. He's the youngest player to do so. You would hear this thing, but to actually be like, wow, and share that moment in an American style, that's significant. The last one is somewhat of a suggestion and something that I've tried my best to avoid doing, and that's avoiding pretentiousness. You don't want to sound arrogant because you've been able and fortunate enough to travel. In fact, what you should do is explain your traveling experiences. That way, people can learn from your experience rather than suggest that they should travel. Because people are either very satisfied with their 9-to-5 job and their wives and their children, so you can't really force that upon them. The bubble isn't always seen as something of a negative connotation. So I think for the most part, when people are returning home, they have this sense of new enlightenment, this new wisdom that they've acquired, and they want to share that, but sometimes it comes off as arrogant. And so I've tried my best to avoid that the best way I can. And as they say, you can't forget where you come from, right? And so that's it. Those are my quick experiences of reverse culture shock. What was your experience? What country did you travel to? And what country did you return to? And in the comment section, just explain your experiences and what was the major differences and similarities that put you in place. Until then, one love, peace, and be free. I got a honey bun. I got a honey bun. I got a honey bun.